Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. One of you asked me a rather personal question in the comments section, and I thought I'd try and answer it. It was this: what pieces make you cry? What music makes you cry? Well, there are quite a few things that have made me cry at various points, but I wanted to try and come up with a nicely varied list because it could be a very large list of 10 works, not the 10 most weepy works or the 10 works that made me, emotional wreck the most, but rather 10 works that usually do the trick, that reduce me to a quivering puddle of emotional resonance one way or another. And believe me, I make a big quivering puddle. I mean, you don't want me to be a quivering puddle, at least not in your living room. The bottom line is, these are pieces that just hit me. I mean, we all have them, right? Sometimes you can explain why, sometimes you can't. And it really depends. And it depends sometimes on the performance, sometimes it doesn't. The circumstances in which you're listening, how you feel at the moment, you remember those particular times. But these are 10 works that usually, when I hear them, trigger some sort of emotional response. And the crying can be sadness, it can be happiness. Usually, for me anyway, it's a sort of, it's hard to describe. It's a confrontation with something which is so beautiful, something that's just so essential, so pure, so lovely, so that just seems to get to the heart of the universe, that it makes me weep. What can I tell you? It happens. You can tell me what works make you cry. I would be very interested to know, your own emotional reactions, because this one's going to be as different and various as there are people. But I would ask, if you're going to comment, because I know many people will, that, you take that question seriously. I took it seriously. I don't want you to come back with Milton Babbitt's Piano Concerto. I mean, it may make you cry for any number of reasons, but you know what I mean. Let's treat the question with the seriousness that I think it deserves, and come up with some very interesting works and explanations for why those pieces have the effect that they do on you. So here's my list. You ready? My 10 works that make me cry. First, Handel. Piangero from Giulio Cesare. This was a toughie because it was a toss-up between Piangero and As Steals the Morn from L'Allegro, Il Penseroso, and Il Moderato. Either one of those just blow me away. But I think Piangero, because you get it in two versions. You can hear it in the opera, and you can hear it in one of the Concerti Grossi Opus 6. It's one of the slow movements, at least the opening idea. There is in this piece a simplicity of thought and a purity of vocal line. And what makes this so wonderful, by the way, is that, the line is, I will weep. It's about crying. It's I will weep at my cruel fate. Cleopatra is lamenting what she thinks to be the loss of Julius Caesar. And the thing that's so marvelous about it is that it's not a minor key lament. It's a major key lament, but it's just as sad. It's fascinating. The Baroque period particularly was very good at expressing, sorrow and things like the Dead March in Saul. It's not in a minor key at all. Things like that. You can do these things. One of my favorite, and I could have put this on the list too, sort of major key laments is from Gluck, Orfeo and Euridice, however you want to pronounce it, Orpheus and Eurydice, thank you. Che faro senza Euridice, da 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 da. And I keep hearing people say, well, why is that sad? He's saying, what am I going to do without Euridice? Because it's sad, because it's not an expression of misery. It's an expression of love. That's what it is. And it's a love that's so intense that it makes you want to cry. That's what you get in Piangero. There's a middle section that's kind of vicious, but the outer sections of this da capo aria in ABA form, it's just Piangero, Piangero la sorta mia, si crudele. I mean, it just opens up, and it's so beautiful, and so intense in its expression of just the loss that she is going to feel because she loves so intensely. And that's what makes me cry. It doesn't have to be minor key and miserable. It's just an unbelievably exquisite aria. It was, of course, one of Handel's greatest hits. And, oh yeah, that's a big... Of course, the whole opera is full of music like that, though. What a glorious opera that is. And the main characters get like 8 arias each. And it's just huge and unbelievable, and at the highest level of inspiration throughout. Probably it's the greatest opera of the Baroque period, bar none. And, you know, I say that with absolutely no pretense to, you know, having heard every opera of the Baroque period to be able to make that claim. But I've never heard a greater one. So next, let's stay in the UK, shall we? Vaughan Williams, Job. Oh, is this a hot piece? My goodness. It's another one of those works of just intensely serious, beautiful, spiritual luminosity, if you want to call it that. And you know, after the whole Job thing has happened, you know, all this whole family's been killed, and he's had pestilence, and he's been, you know, treated absolutely miserably, and the end is a return to the beginning, to the peace and tranquility and serenity of his life, having weathered all of these storms. Oh my God, is that a moment? What an unbelievably moving thing it is. I mean, the music is also at the very, very highest quality. Vaughan Williams never wrote a greater work. It may be his greatest masterpiece. I don't know. I mean, you might want to toss in the Tallis Fantasia or the Fifth Symphony or Floss Campi or a whole bunch of other unbelievably beautiful things that he wrote. But Job, I think, is really, really special. It's actually a ballet. Vaughan Williams called it a mask for dancing. But there are so many fabulous pieces. And to have all of this, are set numbers, you know, Satan's Dance, which is kind of clownish, or the Pavane of the Sons of Morning, or whatever it's called, and God and people. I mean, you know, what are you going to do with a piece that has Satan and God as characters, danced characters at that, and then, you know, Job, this simple schmagegi kind of guy, and it runs this just huge emotional range, all within a style, that wonderful modal style that Vaughan Williams adopted, that just gives the piece a kind of you know, primal being kind of feel. It's amazing. Actually, most of these pieces have sort of this primal feel to them, including the next one, which may surprise you. It's Haydn's String Quartet in C Major, Opus 54, number 2, one of the most original orchestral works of the entire classical period, an unbelievable work of formal genius and harmonic wizardry. The second movement is a sort of passacaglia. It has this repeated bass thing over which there's this freely spun Hungarian Rhapsody in the violin. And there's a moment at the end of that movement that is unbelievable, where the violin just hits this dissonant, it probes gently at this dissonant note that's totally outside the harmony that everyone else is doing. And it just sends a chill down your spine. It just blows me away. Just that one note shows you what Haydn could do with one note in the right spot. Really incredible. But the whole quartet is incredible. It really is. I mean, the minuet has a simple sounding tune with a painful trio section based on a transformation of the same tune. And the finale is an adagio. It's a slow movement with a quick insert, which is a variation on the adagio, actually, sort of, kind of. And again, one of these just beautiful, flowing, serene things. There's something about the ability to achieve, you know, I wouldn't call it nirvana, but, you know, a perfect serene peacefulness in music that some composers could do. They could get there. They could get to this point of stillness that's so special. And Haydn does it in this quartet. It's really, really amazing. He does it a couple times in this quartet. There's nothing else like it in classical chamber music. And the first time I heard it, I was just, wow, this is Haydn? This was written in 17-something? It could have been yesterday? Really an extraordinary piece of music, one that just really, really hits me in my gut, you know? Like I said, it reduces me to a quivering puddle of melting protoplasm, whatever you want to call it. So we're sticking around with some chamber music for a while because, you know, one of the things about chamber music, which I think is so affecting, is the intimacy with which it communicates. And so there are things you'll hear in chamber music. People tend to prefer big, you know, orchestral works or grandiose statements, and we're going to end with quite a few. But also there is this sort of directness of expression that just gets under your skin, you know, goes right to your heart, that you can hear in the great chamber works that you don't get anywhere else. You really don't. And the next one after Haydn is Dvořák, my favorite, Dvořák's Dumky Trio. Well, the Dumky Trio, I mean, what is a dumka? Dumky is the plural. A dumka is a Ukrainian dance, or at least originally, which features extraordinary variations of mood. That is, it begins as a lament and then becomes like a can-can. You know, it's this crazy, high-spirited thing, and it alternates back and forth between these two moods. And Dvořák's Dumky Trio has 6 movements, 6 dumkas, or dumky. They're very, very different. They have a wide range of character, but I just think that the Dumky Trio features the most unbelievably comprehensive and generous, bountiful assortment of personal, absolutely unmistakable melody that anybody ever packed into a single chamber work. Really, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. The tunes just keep coming, and every single one of them is one of those soulful, Slavic. It's maybe because I'm an Eastern European Jewish person. It just got to me, you know, because there are tunes in there that sound very Eastern European Jewish. But wow, what an unbelievable selection of melodies! And not only that, it's not just that the tunes are amazing, but that the settings are amazing. You'd think, okay, it's a piano trio. It's a violin, a cello, and a piano. Big deal, right? But the color that Dvořák gets from this ensemble, the constant kaleidoscopic variety of timbres and rhythms and the always unexpected but incredibly expressive harmonies oscillating between major and minor, sometimes in the same phrase. I mean, wow. Well, I listen to it and it just takes my breath away. It really does. It took me a long time to bother with it because I figured to myself, you know, first of all, because like many naive classical music people who aren't trained, you know, on an instrument and play a lot of chamber music, I sort of pushed chamber music away for a long time because I thought there was something small and uninteresting about it. That was stupid and ignorant of me. It really was. But also because, you know, I just loved his big, colorful orchestral pieces. But then I realized he was no less a colorist in his chamber works. He really wasn't. And boy, do those tunes tell. I could have picked some other works from Dvořák, too. There are a couple of the legends, especially, I think it's number 6, the one that has the tune from the slow movement of the Third Symphony in the middle of it. That's amazing. And then there's the Romance from the Czech Suite. Oh my gosh, is that something that's going to, you know, turn the fountain on? I think, at least it does for me. But no, the Dumky Trio has got to be the pick. And after that, we have to go to Dvořák's good friend Brahms. This one really knocked my socks off. His second string sextet, the G major sextet, opus 36. Doesn't that sound like it's going to make you cry, doesn't it? I love the way some of these classical pieces can just be called Sextet No. 2 in G major, opus 36. But within that somewhat unassuming exterior package lies a universe of extraordinary feeling and expression. This sextet just does it to me. Oh my God, it's amazing. I mean, every single movement is a screaming masterpiece. And I took this piece apart in the How to Listen to Great Music videos, movement by movement by movement, where we get to hear the whole thing. I do recommend that you go and check those out. because, first of all, I think that they're sort of helpful in learning how to listen to great music, but they will also introduce you to a piece of music of unbelievable beauty and expressive power. It's just amazing. The second subject of the first movement on the cello, ha, 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 wa, da, 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 ba, do, do, da, da, da. Oh, God, it's so beautiful. Even I can't entirely ruin it. And then you've got this interesting rhythmic intermezzo / scherzo thing that has sort of like a Hungarian dance melody in the middle of it, a gypsy thing that Brahms always used when he was looking for a good tune. The slow movement is a theme and variations on a very harmonically ambiguous theme. It's really intense. It's very, very emotionally ambiguous, and that in itself can be very powerful. It really is. And then the finale is just glorious. It's got another one of those amazing tunes, which is actually based on the second subject of the first movement. It's da 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 ya da 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 da. It blew me away, and it blew me away in the best possible way, because I really didn't know the piece at all until I actually heard it. I mean, I knew it. I heard it. I had recordings of it and all that stuff, but it didn't hit me till I heard it live. I mean, I wasn't just hearing it live. It was at a chamber music party at my dear friend, the Brahms scholar, Styra's house. And she always invited friends over. They play stuff. She's a cellist. And they played this sextet. And to sit in the middle of it, I was just sitting there in the middle of it, with the players were all around us doing their thing. Wow, that was amazing. And after that, because that's sort of like unbuttoned the piece. It always does it to me. I mean, it doesn't have to be just that one performance or that moment. It hits me every time, because I finally really listened. That's the key. It's always the key. The key is listening, hard listening, deep listening, doing nothing else but listening, and letting the music just soak in and reduce you to a quivering heap. Yeah, that's what it did. So after that, well, this is a little piano piece. It's not so little. It's like a 12-minute long piano piece. But it's something that probably most of you haven't heard, unless you're kind of connoisseurs, serious connoisseurs. Wait a second, my leg just fell asleep. There we go. It's Mendelssohn's Prelude and Fugue in E minor, Opus 35, number 1. Now, there's another one that you look at it and it's not exactly going to, trigger an emotional reaction, or maybe even a glimmer of interest. Mendelssohn wrote 6 preludes and fugues in Opus 35. They're all kind of, based on Bach's The Well-Tempered Clavier. But this particular one, the first one, is really an astonishing piece of music, because the fugue rises to this unbelievable climax. I mean, this just huge, powerful climax. And then with the left hand of the piano pounding away down below, this chorale comes flying in like the cavalry arriving, a breath of salvation, if you want to use spiritual terms. Wow, what a moment. I mean, I'm listening to this piece, and it gets you into it. You get more and more involved in it as it goes, because it just goes from one climax to another. It's amazing that he can do that on a piano. And a good performance has to do that. It has to just sweep you away. And then that moment when the chorale comes in the middle of the climax of the fugue, it's got to just send a shiver down your spine. It's what a moment that was. And I didn't really pay attention to that work. It's another piece. It was a discovery until I wrote my book on Mendelssohn. I mean, I thought I knew Mendelssohn. I knew a lot of Mendelssohn, but Mendelssohn wrote a lot of music, and some of it is still pretty roundly neglected. And this one Prelude and Fugue, there's a zillion versions of it on YouTube. A lot of people played it, as sort of an encore piece or a singleton piece, this single Prelude and Fugue, because it's just really special. The others in the series are very, very enjoyable and wonderful to listen to, but this one just sort of goes, whoa, holy crap, that's Mendelssohn, huh? It's Mendelssohn that you will not believe is Mendelssohn if you have prejudices about the kind of composer that Mendelssohn was. So after Mendelssohn, we're going to go way back. Here's a piece that just knocked my socks off and turned me into a dripping puddle. of oozing substance. Yes, Monteverdi's Vespers. Monteverdi Vespers. I don't know. There was something about that piece. It's early. It's choral. It's Catholic religious music, which I generally couldn't care less about. Although I love a lot of it. I mean, I love it, but in terms of it affecting me in a spiritual, religious way, that ain't gonna happen for the most part. It ain't my religion. But I mean, musically, of course, the music does whatever the music does. It doesn't matter what religion the music is, does it? Makes no difference. And in this particular piece, there's a setting of the psalm, Laudate Pueri, Laudate Pueri, however you pronounce it. I never heard anything so beautiful. I was just captivated. I was transfixed. It was the Herrevega recording, by the way, on Harmonia Mundi. Although, I mean, it does it to me every time. And there are many different ways because it's Monteverdi and the scoring is kind of provisional. It's written for 8-part choir. But you can do it with soloists, you could do it with a larger choir, you could accompany it in different ways. So it sounds very different on different performances. But it seems to survive all of them in making me want to cry when I'm in the right receptive mood. It's so, so beautiful. It's another one of those pieces that it just, I don't know, just hits me where I live. Laudate puri Domino. Laudate Pueri. Then the voices all come in, and one after the other. Laudate Pueri. It's again, there's something about the simplicity of it that just hits you. Music that doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. What's the word? Self-regarding. Or something that allows itself to it seem to effortlessly express whatever it is that it's expressing. It's an incredible setting. I mean, the Monteverdi Vespers is the whole thing is amazing. There are lots of moments in it that I find enormously powerful and affecting and beautiful. But that psalm, Laudate Pueri, boy, that's a mother, absolutely a mother. And after that, let's go forward a few hundred years. Ravel, Mother Goose. I know people's going to say, he's crying the Mother Goose. Oh, yeah. You listen to Mother Goose and tell me if it doesn't shake you up, particularly the last number, the Fairy Garden. Now, you can listen to it as the complete ballet, or you can listen to it as the suite of, 5 original pieces. I listen to the complete ballet always when I can, because the interludes that Ravel wrote between the numbers to turn it into a 30-minute long ballet, well, they're just magical. Absolutely magical. I mean, look, there's a Celesta solo. What's not to love? But that last piece, the Fairy Garden, it's like the Laudate Pueri. It has that same perfect simplicity, serenity, a celebration of just beauty for its own sake. Every dissonance is perfectly placed. Every harmony just flows out of it. It has the inevitability of cosmic entropy, if you want to call it that. I mean, it's just amazing, and it captivates, and it really makes you stop whatever bullshit is bothering you and whatever's going on in your life. And just feel. It turns you into a complete sensory organism, and you just feel this piece, and it's in all of its simple joy in creating a beautiful atmosphere. And it's just really special. When I heard that, oh my goodness, I just was a mess. It's absolutely a mess. And there are so many good performances of it, great performances of it. But I have to say, if you want to hear the best performance of the Fairy Garden, you have to hear the performance with Giulio and the Concertgebouw on Sony. It was a special that worked, not the whole ballet, just the suite. He only did the suite, which is wish he'd done the whole thing, was kind of a Giulio specialty. He recorded it like 4 or 5 times, or 3 or 4 times. There's one on DG, there's one on EMI, there's one everywhere. But that last recording he did with the Concertgebouw, where he just hits the tempo perfectly, and the playing is just exquisite. And it's almost painful. It's so beautiful. It's unbelievable. So after that, we're going to have a couple bigger numbers now. We've done a lot of intimate sort of, personal. Now we're just going to have Mahler's Second Symphony, the Resurrection. Oh, yes. I mean, there's something to be said for hearing a piece of music that is so big and so powerful and so uninhibited and makes absolutely no apology for pulling out every single possible orchestral stop and just blowing you away. That's what it does. It reduces you to a quivering heap by sheer force and volume. But of course, it's not just random force and volume, and it's not gratuitous force and volume. It's a vision. It's a transcendental vision that's put over with such power. And I know that there are people who hate the grandiosity of it all and who find it all very contrived and all that stuff. But that's we don't care about those people, do we? It works. That's the point. It works. And, if you don't respond to it, of course you don't. I mean, what can I say? You'll respond to other things. But if you're not losing it at the end of Mahler's Second Symphony, then the performance either was really, really bad, which has happened, actually. I mean, it's not an absolutely foolproof symphony. It's 99% foolproof because it's so well done. It's so perfectly plotted in its trajectory that it will usually get the job done in concert. In concert, recordings are a different thing. One of the things that sort of has kept me from crying as much as I should be crying is the fact that you can know the music too well. And by that, what I mean is in my position, if you're a critic and you have to listen to every single recording, or you're a Mahler freak and you listen to every single recording that's ever come out, then you start to make comparisons. And you have in your mind the performances that have really been transcendental and that have really just blown you away and knocked you sideways. And then you hear a new one and it's nothing special. So it's nothing special. And so if you had come to it fresh, or if you didn't know it so well, it might very well have had a much more powerful effect on you. You always want to recapture that moment when you've just surrendered yourself entirely to the mood of the moment and the floodgates open, right? I mean, you wish it could happen every time, but it doesn't. It doesn't in that circumstance. But Mahler too is a pretty good guarantor that at some point you'll recapture some of that feeling. But last but not least, however, if I want to be a total sobbing wreck of a person, of a viewer, it has to be Janáček's Jenufa, especially the final scene. The last 5 minutes of that opera is enough to kill you. Absolutely kill you. There's something about the story, first of all, which is verismo. It's a horrible story. Jenůfa wants to get married, but she's pregnant and she's worried her husband is going to get drafted, but he comes back and he's a shallow jerk, and her foster brother, who's also in love with her, is jealous, so he cuts her cheek, rendering her less than stunningly attractive. So her shallow original boyfriend, by whom she's pregnant, dumps her, and her psychotic mother-in-law, who's this very religious, repressed, awful woman who's in charge of the church. She's the sextoness, as they call her in the business. She's a church sexton. She has the keys to the church. She locks her up for the entire winter in a room in their house in dismal Bohemia, where she has the baby, and then, obsessed over the fact that she'll be shamed by the town for her foster daughter having this baby, she takes it out and kills it by stuffing it under the ice. And then she forces her daughter, drugs her, and forces her to marry the guy that slashed her. And then they're having the wedding in the spring, and the ice thaws, and guess who pops to the surface? Little Stevie. Yeah, he pops up with the cap that Jenůfa made for him, and they think that she killed it, and so the town's going after her, and she's defended by her foster brother who slashed her, who really does love her, and it was an accident, and he's sorry, and she's sort of emotionally numb, as you can imagine. I mean, as you can well imagine. And finally, her stepmother, or foster mother, whatever the hell she is, the Kostelnichka, she's called, comes forward and says, "I did it." She confesses, and Jenůfa finds it within her to forgive her, as they lead her off to jail, and then she tells her erstwhile husband, they haven't been married yet, soon to be, who slashed her originally, that he should go too, that she's a disgraced woman, and that she'll never want to attach himself to a girl of her reputation, her bad reputation. And he says he doesn't care because he loves her, and she experiences this rebirth of hope because she feels the sincerity of his love, and that's how it ends. It actually has a happy ending, but it's a happy ending that, again, it's happiness and sadness combined. It's just it combined in a way that's true. You know what I mean? Nothing is ever purely happy or purely sad. Normally, there's one of the reasons you're sad, if you lose a loved one and you're sad, you're sad because of the happiness that you're losing. So there's an intermingling of feelings, I think, there, and Janáček just captures that moment so perfectly. And he does it in music of unbelievable poignance, and again, just this harmonic. The main theme is just a tiny little motive. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. I mean, and it's just it comes back in different instruments, and the harp's just going like this, and you hear that tune at the top, and oh my God, I just can't get past it. I when it's over, I just have to sit there for a minute and gather myself. It's so beautiful and so emotionally truthful. I think that's what really does it. What really sets the emotions free, at least in me, is when there's a piece of music of such sincerity of expression, of belief, of somehow capturing the human condition in a way, and then packaging it and sending it over to you. It's a gift. It's like receiving a gift, and you're so happy to get it that you just cry. Jenůfa is like that, and it has many moments like that. There's the scene in Act 2 where Kostelnichka decides to kill the baby, followed by the scene when Jenůfa wakes up from her drugged sleep, and she can't find the baby, and her mother-in-law's missing, and she thinks she's hallucinating. I mean, it's opera, of course, is all about women in extremis most of the time. And Jenůfa has some of the most extremist moments of any opera. Great vignettes for all of the characters, but the emotions that they're feeling and the kind of people that they are, simple people in terrible moral situations, making awful choices, but somehow overcoming all of it in the end, and feeling that there's still hope and beauty and love, and oh my gosh, I mean, it makes me, I'm getting like, I get teary just describing it. I really do. It's that powerful. It's really an extraordinary piece of music. It really is. So there you have it, my friends. 10 works that make me cry. And I'm very interested to know what does it to you. I'll bet there are a few out there. And I hope you've enjoyed or tolerated allowing me to unburden myself. And I thank the commentator who asked the question. It was, I think, a brilliant question and a fair one. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.